All right, so let's take a look at this passage. So we know overall, this particular passage was talking about a family, it was describing their living situation, and it was just giving you specific, very visual details as to what their apartment looked like. So when you guys are reading, the biggest takeaway I can tell you is that you always want to make sure you're very clear as to what the story is about. You don't have to remember specific details because you can always go back to reference that, but you never want to read a passage and you don't have an idea of a general summary, meaning like you can read it and you can tell me what it basically was about this and this and this and that versus specific details. If you find yourself in a situation and you read a passage and you're like, what did I just read? Go back and read it again. And I also found out today too that you guys do have the option to flag questions. So if you get into a situation and something just seems like it's a little hard or a passage may seem overwhelming, I would just recommend that you go through to answer things that come to you a little bit easier and then spend more time on the back end with things that may be a little bit more stressful. All right, so let's take a look at our first question. It says you can infer that the story takes place in, and then for the options, they have summer, spring, fall, and winter. So first things first, anytime you make an inference is going to be a guess or an assumption that you may make based on facts that are presented. So for example, if we were all together and somebody walked into a room and they had on basketball shorts, sneakers, and they had a basketball in their hand, we can infer that they're getting ready to go play basketball or they just came from playing basketball. Now, do we know that to be true? Definitely, no, we don't, but we're using the facts that are presented to make the assumption. It's called an inference because you can still have facts that lead to a conclusion and it can still be invalid. So that's why when you make the inference, it has to be based on something specific that leads you to believe that. So when I saw this particular question, I knew to go to where something was describing either the weather or something in reference to what was going on. And what I found was it says the gas stove warmed them at night. So that lets me know that's like having a heater, which means what time of year are we more likely to use the heater? That's going to be in the winter, right? So that's the thought process that you have to have, because when I first saw the question, when I thought of the overall passage, I'm like, well, they didn't talk about the weather too much. Specifically, they were just describing what was in the apartment or what their living conditions was. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, well, they talked about an actual stove warming or heating, so obviously it had to be cold, which leads me to believe it was the wintertime. Now, the reason why that's an inference is because, for example, I'm someone who gets cold all the time, so sometimes I may have the heater on in the spring. I may have it on in the fall. But the fact of the matter is, in this situation, we know normally warming is always occurring in the wintertime. All right, number 2 says, in the third paragraph, the word icons means. So anytime they point you guys in the direction of a particular paragraph, I always recommend that you go back specifically to read it so that you have the context around the word, because you always want to make sure you're understanding how it's being used in the actual situation. So if we go back to the third paragraph, it says, in the living room, the sheer curtains were always drawn back, filtering sunlight throughout the room, passing over a color television and several porcelain icons. All right, so of course we know porcelain is more like, isn't porcelain like glass, or it's something like that? Because I used to have like porcelain dolls, so it's like something in that arena. So now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna look at the answer choices and kind of see what fits in that situation. Now, the way that I personally do it, sometimes if something isn't very straightforward, meaning like I can't look at the answer choices and know for a fact it's one of them, I like to use the process of elimination, because in my mind I need to see, well, what's not fitting in this particular scenario. So when I saw fine china plates, I knew that wasn't an answer, because if we go by what we're seeing, we can assume that they're poor. They wouldn't have fine china. And it also was already mentioned in the prior paragraph that they had flower plates and glasses stacked in a drainer. So it just kind of just gives you context, like they don't really have a lot of money, so we can make the assumption that they don't have fine china. All right, here the next option was ornate lamps. Now, me personally, when I was doing this and going back and forth between the answers, I didn't really get the context that a lamp would be there, only because I'm thinking like, would you have a lamp that close to the TV? I don't know. What were you guys thinking?
I was not thinking about the lamp because it was saying that for the sunlight to come through.
Mm-hmm. That's like, so we have to use the context clues around the situation. I think sometimes when we're reading for testing, we want to be like real technical, but like you say, in this aspect, that's kind of common sense. Like, it's right by the window. I didn't even think about that. I just thought about TV, like, who has a lamp right by the TV? It just really wasn't making sense to me in that form. And then, of course, they have religious figures. So the reason why that one stuck out to me is because it said porcelain icons. And we know that something that is iconic, or an icon, is something that people look up to. And religious figures fit into that. So you know how they have like those statues of like Jesus and, you know, all those things like that. That's why that fits in this particular scenario, because of the word icon. You have to, for this test, what I noticed is you have to have some background knowledge, vocabulary wise, as to what words mean that help to lead you to the right answer, if that makes sense to everybody. And that was another reason why I was able to eliminate lamps too, because lamps aren't normally associated with being iconic. It's just a lamp. You got it?
Yes.
All right, good deal. Wait, can I scroll? Nope. All right, we take a look at question number 3. It says you can conclude that the Gomes family are, and then they have 4 options: Native Americans, United States citizens, Chinese, and immigrants. So again, specifically, they didn't talk about race or anything like that, but there was something small that was added to let us know who they were. In the last paragraph, it says the Gomes family had rented this apartment for 10 years ever since they came to this country. So we know that when people go from one country to another, that makes them an immigrant.
Immigrant.
Yep, because the other options won't work, only because nothing was specifically referenced for them to be Chinese or them to be Native American. Nothing was mentioned culture-wise to let us know, because somebody could be Chinese and be an immigrant. We know that, but nothing about the story was specific enough about that culture for us to decide that they were Chinese. And then, of course, we know they weren't citizens because they had traveled to the country. All right, if we look at number 4, it says, what would be the opposite meaning of the word immaculate in the second paragraph? So if we go back to the second paragraph, you always, again, want to go back and read so you can see the context of how they're using it. It says, Mr. and Mrs. Gomes lived on the second floor with their 3 children, with their 3 young children. Their 4-room apartment was immaculate and tidy. So that was my key word there, because they paired it with the word tidy, right? It's neat and it's clean. So in this particular question, we're looking for the opposite, or we're looking for the antonym of that. All right, so what's going to be the opposite of neat and clean? In this case, it would be filthy. It would be filthy. All right, so again, using those context clues to understand, like, hey, they just saying that if it's neat, if they're already saying that it's neat, obviously it has to be clean. So that's how we got that particular answer there. All right, number 5. So we're back to another inference. It says, what can you infer? So remember, we're using facts to come to this decision about the children's bedroom. It is well furnished. It is crowded. It has its own bathroom. It is pest-free. So if we go back to the paragraph that describes the children's room, right? It says the children, 2 boys and a girl, shared a large room with one small window that was separated from the kitchen by a curtain. So we already know, first and foremost, it's not even a closed-in bedroom. It's just a separate space from the kitchen. The gas stove warmed them at night. Their toys were piled up high in wooden crates. The children did not dare turn on the kitchen light for fear that the 6-legged brown-bodied pest would dart out in front of them. So we know that they're in a space that's not technically a room, like a makeshift room. They have tons of toys in there that are piled up. And the reason why we know it's a lot is because they said piled high. So we know everything is being put in one space. And of course, it says the children wouldn't dare turn on the kitchen light for fear that they would see a 6-legged brown-bodied pest. So what can we eliminate in this particular answer?
You can definitely eliminate the pest free because it talks about them.
Yep, that is true. All right, so now we're down to 3. It is well furnished, it is crowded, and it has its own bathroom. So we already know it's separated from the kitchen by a curtain. There is no
Right.
way that they have their own bathroom in there because we already have seen from the facts of the story that they're poor. So obviously everybody's going to have a shared space. So now we're down to it's well furnished and it's crowded. And we know again, if we're going by the idea that they're poor, obviously it's not going to be well furnished, which leads to it has to be
Right.
crowded. So that's the thought process that I have just to help me to be more clear on why the answer is the answer. You don't have to use that thought process. Sometimes you can look at something and you just know the answer is the answer. But to me, just to double check, I always eliminate everything. So I know like, oh, this definitely can't be the answer. This is not the answer. You know what I mean? Just so we clear on getting those points. All right, and then number 6, the pests mentioned at the end of the passage are probably, so they have ants, mice, rats, cockroaches. So we know that in the passage, they said six-legged, what did they say? Yep, 6-legged brown body pests. All right, so we know, of course, if it has 6 legs, we already can eliminate mice, and we can eliminate the rats because they have 4 legs. So now we're down to ants and cockroaches. So what made me, of course, go with cockroaches is because that's more common for kids to be scared of roaches instead of ants.
Right.
And it's
And
their
then they're brown.
brown body, right? That was really the key, like their brown body. So we know that those are roaches. So when we go through this thought process, like what we did for the passage, you see how every answer we came to, we had support from the passage, which helps us to stay firm in our answer. So when you guys are taking your test, you always want to make sure you have the support from whatever you're reading to confirm that you're getting the right answer. All right, so does anybody have any questions from that passage, or were there any of the questions that they answered and they got a different answer from what we got? No? Okay. All right, so take a couple minutes, we'll take a minute to read this and then we'll answer the questions based on that. All right, let's take a look at our questions. All right, so the first one says, how many performances will there be? So if we go through and we look at the specific information here, it says Cinderella will be performed in the Levy Performing Arts Center on June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at 7:30. All right, and then on June 23rd and 24th at 3 p.m. So the natural thing to do, of course, is to look at each date and say, okay, like we got 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. That was my first mistake I made because I'm like, oh, it's only 4, and I'm like, nah, something that was just a little too easy. So let me go back and look at it again. So when I double check, I'm like, okay, these 3 performances are on these days at 7:30. June 23rd, they have. So it's 2 performances because it's another one at 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3 at 7:30, and then we have 2 additional ones at 3 p.m., which makes for the 5. So with these types of questions, the information that's presented is real simple, but we just have to make sure we pay attention to the real small stuff, like very specific. All right, number 8 says, which of the following statements can you most likely assume is true? So it says most of the actors are professionals. The majority of the cast are FGC students. Owen Wingate is the musical director. Tickets are $5 for children under 12, FGC students, and senior citizens. So we have to go through each of those scenarios to see if it's true based on the information that they gave us. So the first one says most of the actors are professionals. Well, if we look at the beginning of this particular information, it says it consists of over 50 actors and musicians, including children, middle school, high school age actors, FGC students, and adult actors. But it doesn't specify that anybody is a professional, right? That's not stated at all, even if someone is an adult. So I know that that one is out. All right, it says the majority of the cast are FGC students. Again, they have such a healthy mix, kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and adults versus the FGC students. We can't make the assumption that the majority of the cast is students based on the information that they gave us. All right, C says Owen Wingate is the musical director. So if we go back in, at the last part of it, it says call Owen Wingate choral director. So that leads me to believe that this could be our golden goose. Why? Because he is stated to be a director. The only thing that gave me a little bit of hesitance is because it said choral director and this one says musical. Even though I know the chorus, of course, is music, I'm still going to keep that in the back of my mind just because it may be a better answer than that one. And if we look at D, it says tickets are $5 for children under 12, FGC students, and senior citizens. So they don't specify the cost anywhere in here. So I know that one's out, which means C, of course, has to be the right answer. So even if you do feel really good about a particular answer, still eliminate the other one so that you can justify it. Because that keeps you from going back and forth and saying, oh, I think it's this one or I think it's that one. You want to have the evidence to say like, yeah, I know it's not this one. I know this one doesn't fit, so that you can get those guaranteed points. So anybody have any questions about this one before we move on? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
All right, good deal. Okay, so this one is an example of an advertisement. So making sure you guys understand what type of information they are presenting to you and of course how to best answer those questions. So number 9 says the intent of this ad. So intention means what's the purpose? Why did they create this? Who were they trying to capture? What message are they trying to get across? So it says A, to inform the reader, B, to educate the reader, C, sell ad space in the yellow pages, or all of the above. So of course we want to go through and we want to see what fits. So if we look at this particular thing, they're just talking about like the environment, leading you in the right direction in terms of resources and how you can find them in the, is that the phone book? Yeah, in the phone book. So first things first, is it to inform? We know to inform is just to provide information about something. So when I saw that, I'm like, well, that makes sense that it would be to inform because they're telling us about something. But when I saw educate, I said, well, educate is still the idea of informing, but a person is learning. So now I'm in a space where I'm like, I'm teetering back and forth between A and B. So let's look at the other answers to see if we can eliminate those. C says sales ad pages in the yellow, well, ad space in the yellow pages. So we know that their reference to the yellow pages was just so that people could find them. It says you may also find additional, right? So I know that's not correct, which leads me to eliminate D as well because that says all of the above. So if we go back to inform versus educate, when we look at the specific definitions to tell the difference between the two, when you inform, you just give specific information about a particular thing, right? Versus educating is when you're learning something over a period of time. So now in knowing the difference between those, we know the correct answer would be what?
A.
Yep, it would be A. So this was definitely one where you had to be real clear on the difference between inform and educate, because even when I saw it, I'm like, well, if somebody's educating you on something, they're giving you information, you're learning. But when we look at the deeper context of it, information is more surface level, which is what something like this is. It's not in depth. Like, see how we've been meeting and we've been having classes? That's more educating because we're taking the time to consume information versus just an ad. It's just, oh, this is quick information. If you want to check it out, visit this or call this number or do this or do that. So I would say to make note that when A passage is informative. They're just giving you specific quick facts about a particular thing. If a passage is meant to educate you, it has to be based on more extensive information. I got it? All right, number 10 says the word heading in the second paragraph means. So if we go to the second paragraph, it says you may also find additional recycling information in the real yellow pages from Bell South under the heading recycling. Okay, so we go through our answer choices. It says a course or direction. So we know in general, this is still referencing the phone book. So I can get rid of A. All right, B says the uppermost or forwardmost part of the body. Part of a body. So of course we know that we're not talking about an actual person. I'm not talking about your head. So we can eliminate that one. All right, C says a title, subtitle, or a topic. All right, that one seems like it could be in the right direction, but of course we still want to go through our last option to see if we can eliminate that one. All right, and that one says a gallery or drift in the mind. So again, we're still talking about the yellow pages, so we can eliminate that, which leaves us with C. So it's always good to have like an idea of what you think the answer is, but I want you guys to practice on being able to eliminate everything so that we can get the guaranteed point. All right, number 11 says, which of these would be the best source of information about recycling? So with this type of question, you have to know the difference between all four of those particular situations. So, and if you guys want to make note, an atlas is used to house maps and charts. So if somebody is like looking to go somewhere or looking at like routes, or like even if it's like old world maps when people used to use boats and all, you know, that was their primary form of travel, that's what an atlas is going to be used for. So again, an atlas includes maps and charts. All right, a thesaurus is basically like a dictionary, but it has all of the synonyms in it. So a thesaurus is used when you want to find words that mean the same as one word you're using. So that's primarily for synonyms. And then of course, we know telephone book, of course, is to find numbers. And then an encyclopedia provides you background information on specific topics. So if we go back and look at the question, it says, which of these would be the best resource on info or information about recycling? Well, I know it's not an atlas because that's talking about maps. I know it's not a thesaurus because that's just talking about words that mean the same thing as a particular topic. I know it's not a telephone book because that's just providing me with the numbers. And the question is asking the source of information about it. So that's why the encyclopedia is the best answer.
We don't use any of them anymore. It's Google.
Yep. Which is so crazy that they don't update the context of the test, like knowing that those aren't things that people use. But I guess because it's like an old form of finding those, they still want you to be like aware. Don't know why.
Do they even teach about encyclopedias in school anymore?
I'm not sure. Because primarily my space is math, so I don't know like the specific breakdowns of the other subject areas. Yeah, I don't know, but for this test, make sure y'all know the difference between atlas, thesaurus, and encyclopedia for sure. For sure, because that's pretty common though that they want you to for these types of exams, not in real life, but they want you guys to know the difference. All right, does anybody have any questions about that one before we move to the next part? Nope. All right, so how are you guys feeling about the reading section so far? So as you guys can see, we did one passage, we had an excerpt. Well, no, wasn't just one. Yeah, so we did one full passage, and then we got like an excerpt about an event, and then we just did an advertisement. So that shows you guys how diverse the content is going to be when it's presented. So on the good side of it, it's not like you're going to just be reading all passages and just answering those type of information. It's going to be a mixture of passages. So what do you guys think about that? No, y'all okay? So everybody's okay with it so far?
So far.
Yep. It's not really that bad though. Once I kind of went through it, I said overall the reading isn't really rigorous, but you have to pay attention to small stuff. Because even I caught myself saying, okay, don't overlook the simplest of facts because they're giving you everything right in your face. And it's like, don't make it harder than what it is. All right, so for this one, they just gave us one paragraph, and then we have to answer 2 questions about this one. All right, so number 12 says, which of the following is a synonym for the word treachery? So make note that you guys understand what a synonym is, as well as what an antonym is. So a synonym is going to be a word that means the same as another word. And then antonym is going to be a word that means the opposite of it. So it says, which of the following is a synonym for the word treachery? So we just need to know what means the same thing as being treacherous. So again, they're trying to see where your vocabulary is. So let's just say, for example, if they gave you a word, right, and you're like, I never even heard of that word, I don't have any idea what it means. Always go back to your passage to see the context as to how it was used, and that will give you context clues as to how it's going. So if we look at it, it says, I had reason to think even less of Silver than the others did. After all, I had seen his treachery firsthand as he repeatedly shifted loyalty from one side to the other side to save his own skin. That tells me all I needed to know, because if he saw his treachery firsthand, even if you don't know what that means, he leads it in the end and says, as he repeatedly shifted loyalty. So that already let me know he's going from side to side, loyalty from one side to the other. So in using those context clues, which one of these words, of course, would be more in line with this particular word? So even if we go through, we thinking betrayal, right? Now, to me, that stuck out because he's shifting loyalty, which means he's betraying both sides. So I made a mental note, like, I think this is the answer, but let me go through and double check. All right, so we look at the word sneaky. So I'm like, I don't really think he was really sneaky, because he said he saw it firsthand. It was right in his face. So that was my clue to let me know he ain't sneaking to do it. He's just doing it. So that lets me know that was out. All right, liar. So we didn't see anything specifically in the passage that said he was a liar. Could he be a liar? Of course, if he's switching sides, I'm pretty sure he's a liar, but we don't have the evidence to support that. So that's why we have to eliminate that one. And then creepy, I didn't see anything in this particular paragraph that made me feel like he was. Is it impossible for him to be that? No. But again, we have to have something that supports that idea. So that's what helped me to eliminate that, which of course confirms our assumption that it is in reference to betrayal. So you see how you have to go through again and eliminate those things that aren't making sense so that you can actually get the points. All right, we take a look at number 13. It says, which of the following is an opinion expressed by the passage? All right, so of course, make sure for this particular part of the exam, you guys understand the difference between a fact versus an opinion. So an opinion, of course, is based on how someone feels, versus a fact, which is something that's stated that's supported by actual evidence. Okay, so if we go through and we look at our choices, it says Long John Silver should hang from the highest, I don't know, is it yard arm? Long John Silver would make a good friend if he wasn't a pirate. Long John Silver had some redeeming qualities, but you couldn't trust him. And Long John Silver would be a good fellow to have on your side in a tight spot. So we know, based on this particular passage, the person who was speaking of him, he thought less of him because of his behavior. Why? Because he was treacherous. He was switching from one side to the other. Even in spite of that, he still was thankful. Why? Because the same man had saved his life. So in us understanding that, hey, this guy's pretty sketchy, but even in the midst of him being sketchy, he still was able to save someone's life. So we have to take that into consideration when we're trying to choose our actual answer based on the passage. And it's always based on what you see. You don't want to have your own opinion inserted when you guys are answering these questions. So the first option, he should hang from the highest yard arm, probably because he's treacherous. But based on what we read, does that lead us to believe that that's the opinion that we should have? No. Why? Because we were presented both sides. Yeah, he switches sides, but he saves lives. So we can't make the assumption that he should be hung because we have two different things that are being said about him. Long John Silver would make a good friend if he wasn't a pirate. Well, nothing in this particular passage is letting us know that he would be a good friend, one, even if he did save someone's life. And two, it says if he wasn't a pirate. We don't know that behavior is because he's a pirate. It might just be, that just may be the type of person that he is, whether he's a pirate or not. So we can eliminate that one. The next one says, Long John Silver had some redeeming qualities, but you couldn't trust him. This is the one that made me say, you know what? This could possibly be the answer. Why? Because redeeming qualities means if you redeem yourself, of course, you're making up for the bad things that you've done. He saved his life. But obviously, you couldn't trust him. Why? Because he was treacherous. He was going back and forth between different sides. So let's take a look at the last answer to see if we can eliminate that one. It says, Long John Silver would be a good fellow to have on your side in a tight spot. Now, in theory, he saved someone's life, right? So we're like, okay, he probably would be a good friend to have around. But the key for me was in a tight spot. We don't know what the situation was when he saw them, right? We know he saved his life when he was a prisoner, but we don't know what was going on in that actual situation to say, oh, I was in such a tight spot and he saved my life. We don't know. So it goes back to confirm that the actual answer is C. So you guys see like the thought process you have to have of getting rid of the stuff. It has to make sense based on the information that they're giving you. We can't make assumptions about him if we don't have the supporting facts. And that is the particular gist of this fact.
Yeah, because I went back and forth between C and D for a long time.
Yeah, that's how I felt too, because I'm thinking like he is pretty good if he saved your life, but it's also only going based off half of the passage, because we have to remember the other half is saying he's so good. He's going from side to side. So C fit more because it's saying, okay, he ain't really that bad, but he can't be trusted. You know, it just gave us more of an overall view of the passage.
Got it.
Good deal. All right, so I'll give y'all a few minutes for just to take a look at this one again, and then we will answer the question.
Can you scroll down a little bit to show more of the passage, please? Thank you.
Overview, which means we can still do a full day of English, and then we'll still have 2 other days to do whatever it is y'all want to do. If y'all want to do more math, if y'all want to do more reading or more English, then we'll be good. So I'll let y'all decide. It doesn't really matter to me.
All right, so basically it's just going to be variable.
Yeah,
night, a variable night, and a math night.
I would say tonight. So tonight we're doing reading, and then what's today? So Tuesday we would actually do English. We have Thursday off, and then the following week, which would be the last week, we would still have 2 more sessions. So it would be up to them. We probably could just kind of do small reviews of everything, I would say, because that would be right before the test. So like an hour math, hour reading, hour English, and then an extra hour for whatever.
Gotcha. How are y'all feeling with it being the end of the second week with the review with Miss Lewis?
Great, because
I could see in y'all eyes on Tuesday that y'all look more confident than y'all did coming in.
Definitely.
Miss Lewis is the GOAT. I got to give you your flowers while you here.
So I have to give her flowers while she's here. Like, this is from Alante. I have to. Like, I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, y'all are so welcome. Of course, I'm very helpful. This is my forte. And I just know with continuous practice, you guys can definitely do like really good on exam. Because I know a lot of y'all ready to like start your dream. And that's my dream, is to help other people reach their dreams. So whenever I can do it, I'll do it.
I'm so thankful for you.
Yeah, y'all gonna be, now that we have those extra 2 weeks though, I know for sure y'all gonna be ready. As long as y'all looking at the content every day, then make sure y'all look at that free app that was added to the group chat. Thank you so much for adding that too, so people can see it, just so you're always practicing. Like, you just, even if I would say, because you guys have 2 weeks, even if you just took like an hour a day to do stuff, that would make you so much better with the content. Now, of course, I would recommend a little more, but minimum, if you do an hour a day, you should be fine. You should be okay.
Absolutely. Like I said, I can see the progress just from a distance within this week. I actually have 2 gentlemen that are currently in my office that are interested in attending their pre-nursing majors here at BCU. So I'll definitely encourage them to come on the following week. I'm not sure about this week coming, but at least the following week. Add a little bit of testosterone to the room.
Oh, well, tell them to come on, because we've been pushing. This is our second week, so we good.
Right. I see. I see. And it seemed like it's the same one. Y'all consistent. Y'all ain't playing.
Yes. And for the new ones, I'm not sure if everyone, like if they were able to see our previous messages when they joined. Should I repost it?
Oh, you saying for the app, please? Yeah, just in case anyone did miss it. Yeah, for the
Okay,
free app for sure.
will do.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at question number 14. So this particular one, they gave us a lot of information, right? So anytime it's like kind of like information overload, don't let that part worry you. Always just, again, walk away with it with the general idea. So when I walked away from it, I said, okay, well, we're talking about a zoo, we're talking about a specific event, and then they're giving me specific information about the zoo. That's what I know that I know. So the general consensus is it's being informative, an event, than the actual zoo. All right, so when we get to our first question, it says the word proceeds in the first paragraph means. So as you guys can see, this is a common occurrence. They are continuously asking us what the meaning of a particular word is. And the best way to answer these is to go back specifically to see where it was used and to see the context of how it was used, because we know the word proceeds can be used in a couple of different ways. And a keynote is when they tell you exactly where it is, you definitely need to go back. If they're saying in the first paragraph, go back and actually find that one. So it's here in the last line. It says ape art and ape related materials and artifacts will be available for viewing or sale, with proceeds going to conservation for bonobos and gorillas in countries of origin. So it says with proceeds. I knew immediately because it says for viewing or sale, right? So you can look at it or you can buy it with proceeds going. So that means that this from the sale, that money is going to be going somewhere. So if we look at the actual answers, the first option is to go forward. So we know normally, like if I proceed to a destination, I'm going forward, but that's not how it was used, right? These proceeds were in reference to what? To money. So I know that's out of the window. B, to undertake and carry on some action. So again, the context of the question, it doesn't go with what we're speaking about. All right, C, to move in an orderly manner. Same thing. These particular options they keep talking about movement. That's another thing that kind of lets you know those aren't the answers. If you have more than one answer that's kind of saying the same thing, that means you can eliminate them. So you see how A says to go forward, and then C is saying to move in an orderly manner. It's still talking about movement, which means I can't be talking about both of those. So it leaves us with D, the amount of money derived from a commercial or fundraising venture. All right. We take a look at number 15. It says from the article, the cost for general admission for an adult to the zoo is, so they have $5, $7.50 free, or not enough information given. So the only time that I saw money referenced here, like an actual dollar amount, was in the first paragraph where it said there will be a free zookeeper talks in the Great Apes area throughout the day, as well as behind the scenes tours of the Great Ape Night House for $5 per person. So remember, this first paragraph is talking about that specific event. The last paragraph is actually talking about the zoo and the facts about the zoo. They give us time, they give us the location, but nowhere here in the general sense of it are they telling us how much the general admission is. So if we go back to our actual answer choices, we can automatically eliminate the $5 because that's talking about that specific event. We don't see 750 mentioned anywhere here. And also they didn't tell us that the general admission. So again, specifically the general admission, they didn't mention that was free. So they didn't give us enough information. They didn't provide us with the information. With this particular question, what they're trying to see is, can you decipher the difference between the first paragraph, which is talking about a specific event, versus the last paragraph, which is telling you specific details about the zoo? They want to know that you can decipher between those two to be able to answer the specific questions.
Look, and you actually, I said to make sure you actually read it and not just see $5 and say they're gonna my answer.
Yes, that's definitely what happens. One, and it's like it's easy to make that assumption because it's the only dollar amount that's there. So when I saw the question, I'm like, well, let me go see what was $5, and I'm like, nah, they're talking about going to do a tour, that has nothing to do with general admission. So like you say, did you read it? And are you specifically understanding that they're looking for the cost of general admission? A cost was mentioned, but it wasn't that specific one. So if y'all notice, like as we go through the stuff, everything is very specific as to what is being said. Again, are you reading the passage? Do you understand what's going on in the passage? And then can you answer questions based on that? All right, number 16, which of the following events during April are not free? All right, so we have face painting, we have the tour of the Great Ape Night House, presentations by internationally known Joe Thompson and Charlene Gendry, and admission to the Clearwire booth. All right, so we know that primarily in the first paragraph, they were talking about the events in April, right? So if we go and we find face painting, all right, so it says other activities scheduled for the day are ape-related children's activities and face painting, as well as informational booths by conservation organizations. All right, so we know that we have children's activities and we have face painting. I know at the end of this paragraph, it says there is no additional cost for admission to the zoo guests for this evening. So that's included in there. So I can automatically eliminate that first one. The second one says the tour of the Great Ape Night House. Now if we go back to our first paragraph and we talk about what, that $5, right? It says as well as behind the scenes tours of what? The Great Ape Night House for $5 per person. So we know obviously that's where the money is being spent. So that's gonna lead me to believe that that's my situation. I'm thinking that that's the answer, but again, we still want to confirm. All right, it says presentations by internationally known Joe Thompson and Charlene Gendry. I know that was in the first paragraph. Now, again, as I'm going through this, I'm just being very specific and thorough just to give you guys an idea of how to do the process of elimination. I do feel like that question was more straightforward, like it told you that it was $5 per person. So this will be a question to where you don't have to do process of elimination, but I still just do it anyway, just to double check to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, presentations by internationally known. So they talked about these people here, internationally known Joe Thompson, all of that stuff. They will be on site giving presentations. All right, but nowhere did it say that. We actually had to pay for that. And then it also says admission to the Clearwire booths. Where is that? Okay, here. Clearwire, also a sponsor, will have a booth, but again, there is no additional cost. So in those situations, of course, we aren't paying, which means the answer has to be B. So as you guys are prepping, always just find a method that works for you so that you, again, can get those guaranteed points. All right, 17 says, how many animals were in the zoo's collection when it began in 1914? So if they ask you a question about a specific date, go to find the date, right? Because the information has to be somewhere based around that. So I know they talked about that in the last paragraph. And here it says, starting in 1914, with an animal collection that consisted of one red deer fawn. That means when it first started, they only had one animal. So the answer here would be A. I think they did this one to make sure that you guys understood the context in reference to the time, because if we go back and we look at the last paragraph, you see how we have the number 1,400? It has grown to house that many, right? But they didn't want to know that. They just wanted to know when it first started, how many did they have? So again, seeing if you guys are paying attention. So when you guys are reading the passages, take your time and read it because they're giving you more than enough time. A lot of times when people go into test prep, they're like, oh, you should just skim and, you know, just read over and skip over stuff, but they're giving you guys more than enough time. So in the context of this exam, take your time, right? Always be aware of how the time is moving, but don't let the time dictate how you perform because you guys have that wiggle room to be able to breathe. All right, number 18, which of the following statements is a fact? So remember, make note, you have to understand what the difference between a fact and an opinion is. An opinion is based off how somebody feels about something, right? A fact is something that is supported by details. An easy way to understand what an opinion is always going to be some type of something that's being, I'm trying to think, like adjectives that are used to express specific things. So if we look at A, it says the Jacksonville Zoo is a great place for children's birthday parties. You see how it says a great place? That's an opinion, because somebody can really think something is great and I can think it's horrible. So that's not a fact. All right, B, the great apes are the best attraction at the Jacksonville Zoo. You see how we have the adjective best attraction? Again, opinion based, because somebody may not like apes. They may like the tigers. They may think that's the best attraction. All right, C, the Jacksonville Zoo is a member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. All right, so that's just giving us basic information. And then if we look at D, it says Charlene Gendry is a wonderful speaker. So you see how it has the adjective wonderful? That lets me know that's an opinion, which leaves me with C, which is a fact, because that was actually mentioned in the passage. So when you guys are deciphering between facts and opinions, opinions will always have some type of adjective, like it was great, it was the best, you know, like hands down, like things like that. That lets you know that's somebody's thought. It's not actual fact. All right, if we look at number 19, it says, which of the following statements best describes the overall purpose of the information in the article? So when they say overall, that's the general main reason why they did it. They want to see if you guys can decipher between the details, the smaller things that were added versus the main, like why would they actually write this particular article. So you want to look at things like the title, and then you also want to look at the actual information that is given. So it says A, to alert people to the plight of endangered bonobos and gorillas. So even though that was mentioned, right, it's not the overall purpose. Anytime something is mentioned, that's just a detail, right? But that's not what we're looking for. B, make money for the conservation of great apes. Again, that is not a main idea of what they're talking about. They described an event that's going on, April, a celebration of apes, right? And then they follow that by information about the actual zoo. So that's not it. All right, C, encourage people to visit the zoo for this special day. So when I saw that, I said, well, that makes sense, because if we just look at the title, April, a celebration of apes, and then it goes in to tell us about this particular day and all the things that are going on. So my mom was, okay, that probably is what makes the most sense, but let me make sure I can eliminate everything else. And then D, educate the public on how the zoo has grown in 90 years. So even though in the last paragraph, they talked about how they started with one animal and then they grew to the 1400, that wasn't the overall purpose. That was just a detail. So if we go back to what we first thought, which was C, that's the overall idea. They want you to just come out to the event. They're telling you about the event, and then on top of the event, they just added some extra details about the zoo. Okay? So make sure you know main idea, main purpose versus little details, little smidges of things. The easiest way I can describe it is the main idea is something that always can stand on its own, and supporting details are pieces of that. It's kind of like if you had a burger, your main idea is the burger, and your details are like your ketchup, your mustard, your pickles, you know, like things like the burger is still a burger without the condiments, but the condiments not really much of anything without the burger. All right, so everybody good so far? Does anybody have any questions about that particular one?
I'm good.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right, good deal. Okay, so we're gonna go through the next one, and we're gonna take like a small break sometime. Then we'll get back to it. All right, so next passage, I Wonder Why. I really enjoyed this one. As a woman, I thought this was a pretty great read. All right, so I'll give you guys a few minutes to take a look at this one again, and then we'll answer some questions. Okay, so they gave us a longer bit of information to read. So it's good that they give us a balance. We have some we have like some stories, we have actual paragraphs, we have things that may come from a newspaper, we have an article like what we just read, you may have an advertisement that you're looking at. So again, a good balance of things, which is super good, but you just have to be aware of how to approach them. All right, so number 20 says, which of the following can you assume from the essay above? So we know in general, when we look at this essay, we have a woman, right, who's a wife, and she's a mother. But she said that she was inspired by seeing one of her old friends who was recently divorced, and she decided, oh, it would be so nice if I had a wife. And then she goes on to explain all of the things that wives do and what they're responsible for when they have a husband and children. So what can we assume? A, the writer is happy and proud to be a wife. Well, we can eliminate that. Why? Because if she was so happy and proud to be a wife herself, why would she want one? One. And two, when she goes on to describe all of the things that a wife is doing, if you look at the tone of the passage, she's being very, what? Sarcastic. Yeah, I wish I had somebody who can do this, that, and the third, worry about what I got going on, me not be considerate of what she has going on, and she still does it. So we know that is definitely not the answer. B, the writer is a feminist. So got to make sure you guys understand what the actual words mean. That word means, of course, before you actually pick the answer. So a feminist is somebody who just advocates for women's rights. So in the back of my mind, like that might be an answer, but I don't know. I got to kind of see what else is going on. All right, the writer hates men or specifically husbands. So even though she's being sarcastic when she's describing it, there's nothing in the passage that was said to allude to the idea that she actually hates men. She might, but we don't have the evidence to support that. And that's going to be a key occurrence in this section. If you don't have the evidence to support it, you can't choose it as an answer. All right, and then D, the writer has a lot of free time. So we know that she's a wife and she's a mother. And based on all the things that she would want her wife to do, what does that mean? What can we get from it? Her wife wouldn't even have time. So if she is the person that she's seeking, she doesn't have the time, which leaves us with B, she's a feminist. She is a feminist. And you would have to catch that only if you understood that she's being very sarcastic. She's very sarcastic, meaning that I just want somebody to do everything for me, not just worry about myself. That's really what I'm looking for. When she's really just saying, hey, it kind of sucks having to worry about everybody except for me. That's just another way of advocating, like, hey, we need help. All right, 21. The tone of the essay can best be described by which of the following? Well, we talked about it a couple times, but first one, sarcastic, which we know, of course, is the right answer. But let's just say if you was at the test and you kind of didn't get that part, right? We can just go through the other ones. So ironic, pessimistic, and rebellious. So I know for sure that it's not pessimistic, because being pessimistic is just seeing the bad in everything. It's like making everything so negative. And she could really be seeing the negative parts, but it's not how it's being presented. She's not like, woe is me, I hate being a wife, I hate being a mother, no, she's just saying, hey, I just wish I had one of those. Where can I get one of those things? All right, rebellious, of course, is going against the norm or the standard, which of course we know that she's not doing. She's not saying that. She's just saying, hey, I just want one of those wives. I want somebody who does the same thing that I do. All right, so we can eliminate that one. And then, I skipped over ironic. All right, so when we talk about things being ironic or the irony of something, when something is ironic, it's like basically the opposite of what you see going on. Like very, I don't really know I know what it means. I'm trying to find a better way to describe it. Does somebody know a better way to describe irony for me? No? So basically irony or something being ironic is like the opposite of what it is. I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't think of Okay, I found one online. Okay, so if something is ironic, this is the example. It says, if it were a cold, rainy, gray day, you might say, what a beautiful day. So the opposite of what you see, of course, like trying to say something that's not really going on, like black and white, something like that. But in this case, of course, that's not what's going on. She was actually being sarcastic. I'm a wife and I'm a mother, and I want somebody that does everything that I do. I want somebody to be responsible for all things I have going on. Okay, and don't go overboard with the gratitude. Okay, for real. Okay, I got it. Cool. So as I was going through, I was making notes of just small things, of course, that they would want you guys to know. So you see how tone would be something that you would have to familiarize yourself with. All right, 22. As the word sympathize is used in the last paragraph, which word below is the opposite in meaning? So if we go back to the last paragraph, it says, I want a wife who will care for me when I am sick and will sympathize with my pain and loss of time from school. So I want somebody who's gonna care about me when I'm sick and basically feel my pain when I lose time from school. So if we're looking at something that means the opposite, obviously the opposite of somebody who is caring or understanding is somebody who doesn't care. So we have commiserate, understand, empathize, and apathetic. So you have to go through, even if it's like a situation where you kind of don't know all the words, some of them you know when you see them so that you can eliminate. Well, I know when I first seen commiserate, I'm like, it sounds familiar, but it wasn't really ringing the bell, so I skipped that one. Of course, understanding is the same thing as being sympathy. If you sympathize with somebody, you're trying to understand how they're feeling, but we're looking for the opposite. So I know that one was gone. Same thing with empathize. When you're empathizing with somebody, you can understand what they're feeling emotionally, like you have actually been in that situation. So that is gone. So that leaves us with commiserate, and that leaves us with apathetic. So I know that anytime something is like, see how it's like apathetic or apathetic, A is always like anti-opposite, meaning like it's like the opposite, or you're not feeling that particular way. So for this one, I had to use Google as my assistant just so I could know. And when I looked at the word commiserate, that meant to do what? To understand, which is the same thing as the piece that's gone. Apathetic is just not caring, showing no sympathy, lacking, interest in something. So that was a particular answer. So in my mind, I felt like if I was on the test, I would have been able to eliminate B and C, and I would have went back and forth between A and D. And I would have leaned more towards the D just because A to me means anti, meaning I'm not gonna do it. Not even though I didn't know it meant not to care or not to show interest. That would have been my reasoning, because I wasn't really sure on what commiserate means. So if you get to a particular question and you're able to do your process of elimination, just make the best guess that you can, but don't stress about it. That's how I felt on this question. Like, I don't really know. I wasn't 100% sure. All right, 23. Which of the following sentences does not fit with the overall theme of the passage? All right, so we know what's the theme. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I want somebody who's doing all the same stuff that I'm doing and not complain about it. All right, so I want a wife who will not bother me with rambling complaints about a wife's duties. So that's not in line with the theme. Why? Because I want a wife who's gonna do everything I say when I say it, because I wanted to. All right, if we look at B, I want a wife who will take care of the details of my personal life. So that one is kind of in line, because it's like she's taking care of something. Wait, hold on 1 second. It's not fit. Okay, wait a minute, y'all. I was looking at it a little backwards. Okay, wait, let me start from the beginning. All right, it says, which of the following sentences does not fit with the overall theme of the passage? So which one doesn't make sense based on the information that we have? So I want a wife who will not bother me with rambling complaints about a wife's duties. So of course, we know that does fit, right? Because she wants somebody who's not gonna, don't bother me, don't complain. Just do what I say do. All right, B, I want a wife who will take care of the details of my personal life. That does fit. Why? Because she's still taking care of everything that I need and that I have going on. C, I want a wife who will be smart, interesting to talk to, and independent. So we could assume like, okay, I might want a smart wife and I might want her to be interesting, but this independent thing, this is a no. Why? Because if she's independent, she ain't too concerned with what I have going on, taking care of the kids and doing all that stuff on her own. So that's like, okay, that may be an option. And then if we look at D, it says, when I am through with school and have a job, I want my wife to quit working and remain at home so that my wife can more fully, completely take care of a wife's duties. So that is in line. Why? Because that's why she wants a wife. I just want somebody who's going to do everything. So C is going to be the one that doesn't fit, because they're not looking for someone who's independent. I don't want you to have your own life. I want your life to revolve around me and what I have going on. All right, let's take a look at the next one, which is a poem. This poem, ooh, the first question I did good. The second one, I kind of was like, what? What are they talking about? All right, so this one is basically talking about a spider, right? But to me, I think the language of it was kind of like, what are y'all talking about? But once I kind of like started putting stuff together, I'm like, okay, it's not really as bad as I thought it was, but it still was kind of like a doozy. So if we look at 24, it says, what is the spider doing? Like, what is actually going on or what's occurring in this passage? So, of course, it says a noiseless, patient spider. So, we know a quiet spider that's being patient, right? That's what's going on. I marked where on a little promontory it stood isolated. So, we know it was quiet, it was being patient, and it was by itself. It launched forth filament out of itself, ever unreeling them, ever tirelessly speeding them. So even if you don't understand what filament is, just think of it. Launch forth. That means they was throwing something and it was going from the inside of itself. So now we start thinking about spiders. What are spiders commonly known for? What do they have that they spit out? It's kind of like if we were talking about like the snake, we know they have venom. So if we think of a spider, we know that they spin what? They spin webs, right? So of course that is how C is the answer. So if we look at A, searching for food, nothing in this particular excerpt tells me that they're searching for food. Now we know that they can spin webs to try to get food, but he is doing what? He's being patient and he's standing isolated, right? So he's not searching, he's just sitting. So that's out. All right, it says exploring its surroundings. We know we can eliminate that. Why? Because they're standing isolated and quiet. And then we can't say D that is dying. Why? Because it has the movement, and nothing about this passage is giving me a support to say that it's actually dying. Could it be dying? Possibly, but it's nothing in here that's supporting that. So that's something that we keep seeing. We have to have the support from the passage. All right, number 25, the word promontory most closely has which of the following meanings? So if we go back to the passage, it says, I marked where on a little promontory it stood isolated. Okay, so we have a high spot or a vantage point along a walkway, a very noticeable spot, a known or common location. So I had never heard of the word promontory before. So I had to go by basically what kind of was going on and where I feel like I personally see spiders the most, especially for him to be able to give this particular detail. And y'all can help me out too as to how you guys are able to answer it. So when I thought a high spot or vantage point, that stuck out to me because most of the time when you guys see webs, it's always in a higher spot. It's always coming from a high point. Even if it's hanging, it's coming from somewhere up high. You don't see particularly spider webs along a walkway. Like that's just not something that you kind of see, or you don't see them spinning webs on a walkway. So that's what helped me to eliminate that.
Right, and nor will it be isolated.
Right. And then it says a very noticeable spot. So because it goes back to I marked where on a little promontory, it's like, okay, if it's a small spot, if something is small, it's not really noticeable. You got to kind of really be looking to kind of see what's going on. That's what helped me to eliminate it being noticeable because it's a small space. Meaning that we know with spiders, you can overlook a spider because they're small themselves. And if you think of the space that they occupy, it's really small. And then it says a known or a common location. So again, because we have the isolated part, it's kind of like they're hiding, they're kind of in the cut. So that's how it was eliminated that one, which led me to believe that A was the answer. So for this particular question, I use more of my outside knowledge to answer this. I couldn't find enough of the information in this passage to answer. I just kind of know spiders make webs from higher points, which goes against what I normally say, only because you really should only answer questions based on the information that they give. It should always be based on the passage. But me personally, it was harder for me to see the context around that particular word. I just know spiders are always in a hot spot. That just always makes sense. But I still was able to eliminate the other ones based on the actual passage. So sometimes you can lean on your own understanding, but not too much, right? You still have to be able to make the eliminations based on the information that they give you. All right. All right, so here they give us a chart about the Florida Bat World Rescue Center. So they want to make sure that when you guys are reading the chart, you understand everything that's being presented. So if you guys notice on the left-hand column, they're giving us the locations. In the middle, they're telling us, like, I'm just assuming it would be like the person of contact or whoever you need to speak to. And then in the third column, they're giving us the actual phone numbers. So I don't know if the specific people are like just actual doctors. And then you see how here it says like the Florida Wildlife Care Center or the Treasure Coast Wildfire Hospital. Those are actual organizations. It didn't really specify. So that's just the assumption that I'm making. And then they give us a little memo at the bottom, please remembers, and just little things you need to keep in mind. And for this one, you had to answer 4 questions, which is pretty good. I prefer to answer questions with these versus the passages. That's pretty cool. All right, so 26, according to batworld.org, how many wildlife hospitals serve as rescue centers for bats in the state of Florida? All right, so if we go through and we look specifically here at the answers, we have to focus on the actual wildlife hospitals. So we have Treasure Coast, we have Florida Wildlife Hospital, and then we have St. Francis. Is something missing? Let me double check. Which one? What is y'all?
What was that question again? I'm sorry.
We're on number 26. Because I do see that let me double check. Because when I did it, I just circled 13. I just counted all of them. But that's just saying rescue centers. But now I'm looking at the question, it says, how many wildlife hospitals? Right, so it's just like I see 1, I see 2, and then I see, is it just the 2?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking, just 2 for hospital.
It's just 2.
Yeah, it's just 2. All right, is that let me confirm, make sure that's the answer. 26 is B. Okay, just making sure. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, yes. So the key for this particular one was because they said how many wildlife hospitals. Okay, so making sure that we understood in the center that these are our points of contact, but some of them are actual places. So like, see how this says Florida Wildlife Care Center. This one says Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital. So that key word of having that hospital there. And what was the other one? Here, Florida Wildlife Hospital. So with these ones, I would say very straightforward. Just make sure you guys can sift through the information and understand specifically what they are asking you. All right, and then see, look at me moving too fast. I'm just counting everything in the column because I'm thinking these are all of our points of contact, which is true, but that's not what the question was asking. It was asking for wildlife hospitals specifically. So again, make sure y'all take y'all time when y'all get to y'all test. Just give yourself the grace to understand what they're asking and to answer the questions. All right, 27 says, and GATs can be contacted by telephone using which area code? So we know based on the chart, our points of contacts are in the center. All right, so first things first, we need to locate Ann. Ann is right here. And then they just want to know what's the area code. So now we're looking at phone numbers. So they just want to make sure, do you know that the first 3 digits of the number are the area code? In this case, it was 850. So that was D. All right, 28. According to the information above, which is the best way to contact a bat or wildlife rehabilitator? So if we look here, right, they're just giving us general information. So we want to take a look at the paragraph at the bottom to see if they give us a little bit more context. So it says, bat and wildlife rehabilitators are extremely busy, sometimes caring for orphaned and injured wildlife up to 20 hours a day. If you find a black bat, please do not rely on email to help, since time may be critical to saving the bat. Please call a bat or wildlife rehabilitator nearest to your location as soon as possible. All right, so if we go by what they say, all right, we know the best way is not by email, right? Because they already said it. Do not rely on email to get help. So that's gone. It says, please call. So, okay, I'm knowing telephone is a consideration. So let's see if we can eliminate everything else. It says by referral from another wildlife rehabilitator. That isn't mentioned anywhere in the paragraph about a referral. All right, and then D, of course, says in person. So now we're just going back to look at the information. Nowhere did they say that was the best way to do it. They were saying that you can consider transporting them or meeting them halfway or even making a donation. But if we look at the context of the particular thing, they're saying, if you find a bat, if you find one, please call. So it would be by telephone. All right, and we look at number 29. It says, which of the following is an opinion? Now, this one kind of was like a little iffy for me, only because it's like, I don't know. It just was kind of iffy. All right, so remember, fact versus opinion. So A, bat and wildlife rehabilitators, I guess it's supposed to say rehabilitators, are extremely busy. So if we go back to our actual passage, they actually state that in there. It says bat and wildlife rehabilitators, says right here, are extremely busy. The only reservation that I had about that, me personally, when I think about opinions, is when somebody describes something as an extreme, to me, that's an adjective, right? So that leads me to believe that that's an opinion. That was my first thought of it, but I'm like, okay, let me just look at the other stuff and kind of see what's going on. All right, it says the Florida Wild Care Center has a 24-hour helpline. So that's a fact. That's just information that they gave us. All right, wildlife rehabilitators are usually women. So this one kind of raised the red flag to me too, because I'm like, they didn't really talk about the sex of who the rehabilitators were. I mean, we can make assumptions based off the names of the people on there, but again, we're just making assumptions. All right, and then D, there are 4 telephone numbers that you can use to reach bat rehabilitators in the Florida Keys, and that is a fact. So when I got down to A and C, I didn't really have like a inkling on which one I felt like was the better answer. How were you guys able to pick the answers?
I chose C because I was thinking with A, with it stating that they are extremely busy, it was almost like it was a fact rather than
Right.
an opinion.
Right. I did notice that. I think I was just getting into my own head too much, because I felt like because of the way they were describing it, that's still somebody's opinion. But like you say, if they're presenting that, that is a fact in reference to them. Like, hey, we're always busy. We kind of always have things going on. And they could do that just based on the volume of, we'll say, bats they have come in or calls they have come in. So, you know, when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, yeah, that is a fact based on what they are saying, which leads C to be the better answer. But this definitely was one that kind of had me feeling like, when they say extremely busy, I'm like, in whose opinion? You know what I mean? But yeah. Again, still using your process of elimination. If you are like extremely comfortable in the answer, that's cool. But in this case, if this was me, I would still have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. I don't really know which one I would have leaned towards. I don't know. The women thing kind of threw me off, because I'm like, why are they saying that? I don't know. I didn't know. All right.
But there was nowhere in there that they stated anything about women, so
Women.
you can kind of infer that it was the opinion.
You know what it
Of
was? Because I was
somebody.
looking at the names and making an assumption. I'm like, these are all ladies right here, you know? But I'm like, again, that's me making an assumption, which I shouldn't do, because you should always answer questions based on facts. That is true. And you know why? Now that I think about it, that me making that assumption is wrong, because this information is just based on Florida wildlife people. But this is just saying wildlife rehabilitators. They're just speaking in general. So that would be another reason why I would have been incorrect. See, the more you think about it, just talk about it, starts to make more sense. All right, has everybody read this next passage already? Yes.
Maybe not. No one's answering.
No? Okay. So I'll just give them a few minutes, give myself a little break. All right, let's take a look at number 30. All right, it says, what has happened to the people in the village? So if we look at the overall passage, we have a village full of people that are sick, right? Something is going on, people are dying, people are being isolated. That's kind of the general gist of what I saw. So what has actually happened? All right, they are dying from starvation, they are victims of a natural disaster, they have contracted a contagious disease, or they are at war with another village. So we know just off reading the answers, well, we know they're dying. We do know they're dying, but it doesn't specify anything about starvation. So that's out of the picture. All right, we know they're not at war because it doesn't talk about war. So now we have two things left. We have victims of a natural disaster, and then we have they have contracted a contagious disease. So I didn't see anything there in reference to an actual natural disaster. So that, of course, was gone, which leads me to see they have contracted a contagious disease, because that's the theme throughout the whole story. Something is going around. People are avoiding other people. They don't want the kids playing with the 6 kids because they don't want their kids to get it. All right, if we look at 31, a villager walking far around another villager to avoid coming into contact with the bad spirit is most similar to which of the following situations. So they're saying in the context of a person taking a completely different route to avoid getting sick, what is closest to that? All right, so if we look at a person catching a horrible disease, that's not the context of what is going on. Somebody is taking an alternate route or precaution to avoid something. So that's not the answer. If we look at B, a person taking a new route to avoid someone they dislike. So half and half. If somebody is walking far around, they are taking a new route, right? But this one is specifically to avoid someone they dislike, which is not the same as this. Why? Because they're trying to see if you understand the context of the bad spirit. Now we know there are bad spirited people, but in this context, the bad spirit represented what? The disease. So
The disease.
yep. So that one won't work here. So this is like a situation where, again, they're trying to see, did you actually read the passage? Or are you going by your own knowledge of things? All right, C, a person wearing a face mask in the hospital to avoid germs. So this one is right in the ballpark. Why? Because they're avoiding getting what? Getting sick. So we'll keep that one in mind. And then if we look at D, it says a person sneezing on another person and giving them a cold. So that isn't in reference to what this is asking, because this is someone who is avoiding a path so they won't get sick. So that is what leaves us with C, because if somebody wears a mask, they're just trying to avoid getting sick. They're trying to avoid catching that, which is the gist of somebody walking around another villager. All right, 32. What do the people believe is causing their problems? All right, so we have a white man's invasion of their territory, the presence of a bad spirit, pollution from the river, and punishment from the great spirit. All right, so we know that a reoccurring theme was what? The bad spirit, right? So that stuck out to me, which let me know, okay, that probably is the answer, but let me still double check the other ones. All right, so the white man's invasion of their territory. There was nothing here that spoke specifically about that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that just wasn't the gist of what this particular passage was talking about. All right, if we look at C, it says pollution from the river. Again, not seeing anything in reference to pollution. So that's out. And then it says punishment from the great spirit. So it's that reoccurring thing of the spirit, right? Which would kind of make you think, okay, are they being punished? Possibly they could be, but it's nothing in the passage that references that, though. They just keep speaking of what? A bad spirit that's killing people, which is why B is the answer. All right, we almost done, y'all. We only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 more questions. All right, so for this particular one, they were just talking about the Nile River and how the environment was when it was able to flood, and then what happened once they actually built the dam. All right, so if we look at 33, it says, how did the flooding of the Nile River affect Egyptian farmers? So this question specifically is asking what happened while it was flooding, because remember, when they gave you the passage, they gave you 2 different scenarios. When it was flooding versus when the dam was built, okay? So separating the 2 particular situations. All right, so it says the floods made farming more difficult. That's not true, because here it said these silt deposits, enrich the land, increasing the harvest and profits of farmers, right? And that was when it was flooding. So that definitely is not true. All right, it says the flooding allowed farmers to produce more crops. So that goes along with what we just read. It increased the harvest and their profits. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty much the answer, but still we want to double check. The floods washed away the land's rich top layer of soil. Well, they told us when the flood waters receded, a layer of silt was left. And the silt is what enriched the land. So it wasn't taking it away, it was actually deposited. All right, and then frequent flooding required them to use expensive fertilizers on their farmland. Not true. They started using expensive fertilizers when they built the dam. So that's out. So B is in. B is the answer. All right, 34, which detail supports the conclusion that changes in a river can affect how people live? So we have to know that they were living one particular way when it was flooding, and then they were living another way once the dam was built. That's showing the contrast. It was this way when it flooded, they built a dam, and then this is what actually happened. So if we look at the answer choices, it says a river can change its course. Nothing in this particular paragraph is alluding to the change of course. The change of its course actually impacting the people. All right, so that one is out. Humans can change the course of a river by digging channels and building dams. That is true, but specifically in this passage, we're talking about the impact to who? The actual farmers. So that's out. All right, C, silt deposits enrich the land, increasing the harvest and profits of the farmers. That is true, but the question is looking at the changes that occurred, right? So that was the key, is making sure you understand specifically what they're asking, which leaves us with D. Farmers along the Nile River had to enrich their soil with expensive chemical farmers. This was the change. This was the result of, which is the effect, right? It was the result of the dam being built. So they can give you answers that all sound great, right? And they could also be true, but it's always, what are they asking? It's always the particular key. All right, and then number 35, which conclusion is supported by the passage? Rivers are economically important. Definitely have to mark that one. Why? Because economy is all about money, right? And we know based on the passage, when it was flooding, the harvest and everything, that was pretty good. They had more crops. When they built that dam, guess what they had to start doing? They had to start enriching the soil with expensive fertilizers. That means they got to start spending money, right? So that means it's impacting the money. But let's still go through everything else. The Nile flooding made travel and trade more difficult. Could have, but that wasn't the gist of it. We're talking about farmers and crops. So definitely not the gist of the passage. Egyptian farmers use more fertilizer than US farmers do. They may or they may not, but that wasn't mentioned in the passage. And the fishing industry in Egypt is growing. It probably is, but again, not mentioned in the passage. So that's gone. All right, so A is the answer. All right, let's take a look at number 36. All right, so we have a super short paragraph and just one question, which is really good. All right, it says large parts of Earth are very different now from the way they used to be. Many of the changes, like climate changes, have natural causes. Others are caused by people. For example, much of the eastern United States was farmland in the 1800s. Today, much of it is urban or forested. So the question wants to know, what is the main idea? Main idea is, well, that's our burger, that's our meat. What can I walk away with reading this particular passage? All right, so it says the United States was mainly farmland in the 1800s. That was mentioned, but was that the whole point of the paragraph? No, right? That's just one particular thing. That's like adding our ketchup to our burger. All right, cities now stand where farms used to be. Could definitely be true, but that's only a small part of it, right? Overall in the passage, you're not talking about cities versus farms, right? The general consistency is what? What has changed, right, in this space? All right, C, changes in the earth are caused by nature and by people. That could definitely be a contender. Why? Because this is all about changes, right? What it was versus what it is. All right, and then D, much of the eastern United States is forested or urban today. Another detail, why? Because that's just a smidge bit. That's one sentence versus the whole paragraph. So that just leads me to go back with C. If we look at the overall, just talking about how things have changed, how the climate has changed things, and how the people have changed things, and then they have details that have supported that. All right, and then our last passage. So this is an example of dialogue. So dialogue is a conversation, of course, between 2 people, it could be more people. In this instance, we have 2 different people who are speaking. We have Luke and we have David. So of course, if you have read this, you would know that Luke is the father and David is the son. They're having a conversation about David learning how to play the piano, and then he starts to reminisce about his father's absence, and he begins to express how he feels about that. So if we look at 37, it says, what does David seem to want most? So that goes back to understanding, did you read the whole passage? Did you understand who the people were and what their conversation consisted of? Okay, so always going back and understanding that. Take your time and read the passage. Understand what is going on. All right, and the key here is, what did he want the most? All right, so to learn why his father became a musician. So we do know that his father was a musician, right? But the general consensus of what we were talking about, he wasn't yearning, or that wasn't the central focus to know why, right? So that's out. All right, to forget about his father for good. But we know that's not true, because David really had something to say, right? And it wasn't even saying that I don't want you here, but why weren't you here really was what the situation was. So that's out. All right, to find out what his father thinks of him. He might want to know, but that wasn't what he was exuding, or that's not what he was speaking about. That's not what he was yearning for, you know? So that leaves us with D, to understand his father's absence. Yes, for the most part, David wanted to know, where were you and why didn't you come find us? You know, why weren't you here? That's my problem. That's what I want. If you look at 38, it says, what does David most likely mean when he says, you was right up there with the best? So that was located in, was it in the first paragraph? Okay, yep. So if we look here, it was located right here. It says, so the dad starts out with, you play piano like I dreamed you would. And then the son says, I've been finding out lately you was pretty good. Mama never let us keep a phonograph. I just didn't never hear any of your records until here lately. You was right up there with the best. Jelly Roll Morton and Louis Armstrong and cats like that. So you was right up there with the best. So if we look here, it says Luke was, I'm going to say that's supposed to say one. Luke was one of David's heroes, possibly, but that wasn't the context of what he was talking about, right? So that doesn't fit. B, Luke lived in a good neighborhood, maybe, but that's not the consensus of the context of that particular part. So that's out. All right, Luke was a great musician. Could definitely be a contender. Why? Because when he said you was right up there with the best, it followed with Jelly Roll Morton and Louis Armstrong. Now, background-wise, we know those were musicians. But let's just say if you were somebody and you didn't know that those were musicians, then you still would have to continue with your process of elimination. And then it says, Mama admired Luke a great deal. Definitely didn't, because Mama didn't even want them listening to it. So we know her opinion of him was not high, was out. So the answer, of course, would be C. All right, and then 39, what is the most likely reason that David began playing the piano? So I'm pretty sure, I can't remember. He said it in here somewhere. Yeah. Didn't he say that? I'm trying to think. Where was it? David. Okay, here we go. Right here, boom. In this particular paragraph, he says, I remember how you used to play for me sometimes. That was why I started playing the piano. I used to go to sleep dreaming about the way we played together one day. Me with my piano, you with your trombone. All right, so what does that lead us to believe? He wanted to play, why? Because his daddy played. He wanted to get just like his dad. So if we look at the particular answers, it says he had a natural talent for it. Never was that mentioned. Maybe he might have, but it wasn't mentioned. So that's out. All right, he wanted to connect with his father. Now that makes sense. Why? Because he remembered his dad, he started playing, and he dreamed that they would play together one day. And of course, being together is a sign of what? Making a connection. So that's an option. All right, he wanted to be a famous musician, maybe, but it wasn't mentioned. It wasn't mentioned at all. And it says he needed to occupy his free time, maybe, but again, wasn't mentioned. So we know, of course, the best answer is he just wanted to connect with his dad. I want to do something that you're doing in hopes that we could do it together one day. All right, and then 40, which of the following attitudes best describes David's feelings toward his father? So we know, of course, it started out real cordial, like, hey, you know, what happened? You were one of the greats. I was always thinking of you. I want to learn how to play because I wanted to play with you. And then he transitions into, you know, expressing how he really feels. Like, I'm really upset, you know, like, you never come. You never come when you could do us some good. You come now when you can't do anybody any good. Now, we all know if we talking like that, we are very clear as to how we're feeling. So if we look at 8, admiring and respectful, nah, because where were you and why weren't you here? Hurt and angry definitely is a contender for sure, for sure. C, indifferent and numb. So when you're indifferent, that means you don't really feel any type of right? If you're numb to something, you don't have a feeling. But we know based on what he said, he obviously feels a certain type of way. So that's gone. And then D, ashamed and embarrassed. So ashamed and embarrassed was mentioned, but that was only because he didn't want, I think it was because he didn't want people to know that was his daddy. Somewhere in there, he said something about that. Can't remember where it was. But that one's out. So of course, B is the answer. He was hurt and he was angry. He just wanted to know, where were you? Why weren't you here? Now that you're back, is nothing you can do for us. It's not good enough. We did it, y'all. 2 hours.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So, do you guys have any questions in reference to the reading part? I think this just gives you guys a really good synopsis as to what to expect. So it's good that they give you guys a variety. They're giving you guys excerpts from passages. You guys also have maybe like an ad you may see. You may just have one particular paragraph. What else do they have? Paragraph, passage. Yep. You may have a chart or something you may have to read. So just giving you guys a general idea. They do mix it up, which is great. With you guys having 100 minutes to answer the 47 questions, that is also great. It definitely gives you.
You cut out. I'm not sure if it was just me.
Oh, wait, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they give you guys a good variety, so that is pretty good. So I feel like this set of questions just gave us a really good idea.
I can't hear you. Is it
No?
just me?
Is it? Nobody can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
It gives you guys a really good mix and a really good variety. So remember, I did send you guys another packet that has another practice test in it. So you want to just make sure that you can apply the same thought process. I'm gonna try to see if I can find y'all another one to send to y'all. So for sure, we will meet next Tuesday at the school. I mean, of course, unless the weather is bad, I'll let y'all know. And then we'll have the following week to prep as well. So make sure you guys are spending time every day looking at it again, even if it's only an hour, because it's not really stuff you guys haven't learned, but you want to refresh, because reading is the primary score that's going to dictate the order in which they pick people to get in, right? So remember, we have 15 to 17 seats that are going to be based on the reading score. Math, you only just got to pass. English, you only just got to pass. But reading is where the real meat and bones of it comes from. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Thank you. I like the way you broke that down and like went through the process of elimination. Like I think that's where I was going wrong at, is because like once I think, okay, this is the answer, I usually quit right there instead of going all the way through when it may be a better answer.
Yeah, you definitely have to use process of elimination, because when you're under that time constraint, anything that looks like the right answer, you're gonna feel like it's the right answer. And it may be, but because we know the stakes are so high for you guys for the reading, I want you to have that extra security. Like, well, I know for a fact there wasn't these other answers. That's my guaranteed point. You know, and even if you do get to a situation to where, you know, like in some of these situations, I was teetering back and forth between two. I would rather have the 50-50 versus the 25%. You know what I mean? Like things like that. So yeah, I think y'all will be fine. Just practice more and just start becoming more aware of the time constraint. I'm trying to decide if I was thinking of sending sending y'all some like old practice from like the TEAS test and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to make sure it's still in the same ballpark in terms of the content. Because I just want y'all to have more stuff to be able to read and just, answer questions so you can get in the groove of that. Because the more you do it, the better you get. I'll have to see. I'll have to check on my files to see. And if I do think it's like pretty close, it's not the exact same, but if it's pretty close, I'll just email y'all over some more practice.
Okay.
All right. So I'll see y'all Tuesday. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay dry. I'll
Okay,
see
you too.
on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Alright.
You as well. See you Tuesday.
Good night.
Okay. Y'all welcome.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.